This is a public service announcement. Do not, I repeat, do not board any Boeing 737 aircraft unless you can confirm that it's like one of the older ones, although you probably wouldn't be able to know that before your flight. But if you're at the airport and you get up to the gate and you see a Boeing 737, I would turn and walk the other way at this point, because they've had too many catastrophic issues that could have killed hundreds of people in any case, if it weren't for luck and the skills of the pilots. Some of you may remember a couple years back when they had the 737 MAX with all these problems with, I think it was like the autopilot was trying to crash the plane, and the human pilots had to fight the plane and try and keep it in the air. And so that was very scary, when your plane tries to kill you. It's the reason why I'm not a big fan of when it comes to transportation or things that were, traditionally mechanical and analog. Trying to operate them digitally. It creates a certain fragility. It creates risks that did not exist, even if it makes things easier. Like with cars. Okay, sure. Cars do run better as a result of all of the computer gizmos that come in them these days. But all of a sudden, there's much more to go wrong with them. And the same thing is true with an airplane. Except when it comes to an airplane, if things go wrong, you fall out of the sky and die. Nothing can go wrong with an airplane or a helicopter. If a car, if something goes wrong, let's say you're down the road or you're not driving, you just pull over the side of the road. Might be annoying, but shouldn't kill you. But now these Boeing planes are having non-computer related issues. These are just poor build quality issues, or at least in this case. This is a brand new 737 that started to come apart. It was falling apart midair last night over Portland, Oregon. Who knows where the section of the plane that fell off landed? Hopefully it didn't fall and hit anybody. But this plane, it didn't, like have a window blowout or something. A whole big section of the plane, like the width of, maybe one row of seats, a large panel though, top to bottom, completely fell off one side of the plane and rapidly depressurized. Hopefully everyone was seatbelted in. I'd imagine they were, or else somebody would have got sucked out of the compartment. I mean, if that's not a catastrophic failure, I don't know what is. That's not, our engine quit running, or, the plane tried to crash itself and fly, nose first into the ocean. This is, the plane fell apart midair, was coming apart, was, who knows, break in half. Who knows what could happen under those conditions, because planes are not designed to crumble. Who knows what kind of stress that introduces on the rest of the construction when you just have a chunk of the plane fall off, hopefully into the ocean and not, on top of somebody's house. But luckily, as far as we know so far, no one was hurt. They were able to land the plane. But what if they weren't? What if this happens again? I mean, if this is indicative of the build quality in modern-day Boeing plants, it's not like they're churning out, millions of these planes each year and, okay, you got a lemon. It's like, well, no, they don't produce that many airplanes. They produce a small number of them because there aren't that many, in demand. Airlines only need so many planes, and they're only buying so many new planes every year. And so Boeing, when these things cost hundreds of millions of dollars, or billions, I don't even know at this point, probably hundreds of millions, I would think, for a commercial airliner, Boeing better make sure that they're perfect before they go out the door. Because if they're not perfect, if something like this is wrong, if you have, some rivets that you forget to, weld, well, all of a sudden, you've got hundreds of people who fall out of the sky and die. And all the while, Nikki Haley is laughing her way to the bank. Because all of this occurred largely under her tenure as a member of the board of directors at Boeing. And so this is something she's directly responsible for. Sure, she wasn't a member of the board the exact month that this plane was assembled. And no, I don't think that Nikki Haley was put on the board of Boeing because of any business experience she has or manufacturing experience, quality control experience. She was put on the board to protect Boeing, to make sure that Boeing continues to function as a de facto government agency that is unaccountable to the market or to the law. Boeing knows that no matter how much they screw up, they are the U.S. airline industry. They put all of their competitors out of business. There's no one else who makes commercial airliners. And there's only a very small handful of companies in the world that compete with Boeing on an international scale. But nationally, the United States would never allow the domestic, airliner production market to collapse. And so the U.S. will prop up Boeing no matter what. And this is the result. This is what happens when a market atrophies. There's no more, what was it? Who were their competitors before? They had Douglas. You had Lockheed used to make airliners. Of course, now Boeing and Lockheed they've retreated and sort of fenced each other off from one another. Boeing mainly makes commercial aircraft, and then you have Lockheed that mainly makes military aircraft. And then Boeing bought up Douglas, so they're out of the picture. Ford, once upon a time, made commercial aircraft. When you have something that's this big and this hard to produce and and this high risk, you're not going to have a lot of companies in that space anyway. You're not going to have a lot of people with the resources to start this kind of a business. But if there's only one, if there is truly no competition, and they know that, these are the things you end up with. This is what a lack of accountability looks like. The worst thing that could happen to Boeing is, maybe they'll have to pay some kind of fines, but their market share will never be threatened. They will never be threatened criminally. They will never be threatened to be put out of business. There will never be a fine or a settlement imposed on Boeing that could put them out of business. Even if they were, the federal government would just bail them out. Because there are certain industries that the federal government has vowed to prop up. And what do you know? These industries happen to be insanely concentrated or monopolized. In the case of Boeing or U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel, a company that is trying to sell itself to the Japanese. After benefiting from decades and decades and decades of federal welfare, all that money that the federal government, of our taxpayer money that the federal government invested in U.S. Steel to increase the value of that company, and now they're just going to sell themselves off to Japan anyway, cash in on all the value that was built by taxpayer investment. There's no reason why Boeing couldn't do the same thing. Boeing could decide, the board of Boeing could decide, why don't we sell it to Airbus? And then all these decades of federal government protection will have resulted in the destruction and the death of the American airline industry anyway. Or airliner industry, I should say. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.